Hello and welcome everyone to Channel 2S. I am your host, Second Soundwave, and I'm coming at you a little bit sooner than usual with a new episode of Gunpla News because I have something that I want to talk about a little more in depth that was announced not long after I recorded the last episode. You know how Bandai is, guys. I make an episode of Gunpla News, and right as I am ending that recording, something new gets announced. Before we get any further, of course, gotta thank New Type HQ, sponsored the channel. If you want to get yourself some kits, tools, paints, or supplies, use code CHANNEL2S for 10% off your first order. Link in the description. Alright, so the kit you see in front of you right now is the high-grade Advanced Evolution Zeta Gundam. This was a revived version of the Zeta Gundam that was released a few years ago. Here's the thing, the version you're looking at right now is not actually the version we got at retail. This is the 0088 version, a premium Bandai exclusive. What is the difference, you may ask? Well, this is the difference. Despite looking almost indistinguishable from the original revived Zeta Gundam, the UC 0088 version is very heavily retooled. The only reason you don't notice it is because the retooled parts are virtually identical to the original ones, with only one major change. Now, why am I talking about this right now? Well, a couple reasons. Firstly, because this particular kit is getting re-released to coincide with the release of the main kit we'll be talking about in this video, and also because some of the ideas they had in this kit will get carried over to the Rick Dias. So to give you a better understanding of what the Zeta Gundam 0088 version is all about, we're here on, I think SCHizophonic is his name. It's a great blog, full of really in-depth, detailed photo gallery reviews of basically every kit that comes out. I'm going to leave a link to his site in the description because I highly recommend it as a great source of Gunpla information. And the first hint of anything new with this kit you're going to see is on the sticker sheet, where you'll notice that there are very few, in fact only one red sticker as opposed to the revived Zeta Gundam, which came with a ton of red stickers. Because the biggest improvement made on the Zeta Gundam 0088 version is that on the normal revived Zeta Gundam, the red sections on the wings are stickers, and on this model they are solid molded plastic. This image you're looking at right now and all later images in the gallery are all of the kit with no stickers applied. The only stickers used were the foil stickers on the eyes. Here you can see a comparison between the head of the 0088 version on the left and the original revived kit. That's confusing to say, but when I say original revive, I'm talking about the one we got at retail. Here you can see that the UC 0088 version does have a tiny amount of additional detail, as well as some reshaped parts that change the styling of the kit just a tiny bit. Oddly enough, the back of the neck flap actually has less detail than the normal high grade. And all through the body of the kit, you're going to see these kind of proportional changes. The shoulders are a little more squared off, the arm armor is at a slightly different angle, and the hook on the front of the crotch piece was made a little bit more thick. Now, why Bandai made all these changes, I don't really know, because most people seemed perfectly fine with the normal revived Zeta Gundam. However, the main draw for this kit is, as mentioned earlier, the improved color separation on the wings. Now, this did spark a bit of debate in the community when it came out, because this, at the time, was a brand new kit. This was a kit that Bandai just made, and then immediately afterwards, they were turning around and effectively showing that they could have made the kit better from the get-go, but they instead chose to hold out on a very basic piece of color separation for the premium Bandai release. And some people saw that as a bit of a ripoff. And this kit was one of a few that came out in an era where Bandai was really trying to see what they could do to make older molds better for reusing them in the current day. It started with stuff like the HGUC Sinanju Stein, where they improved the hip joints from a standard ball joint on the original Sinanju to the Stein's universal joints. Similar improvements were made to the high-grade Bill Diver's Jigen Blastmaster, but the world of P Bandai is where they really started experimenting with this sort of thing. So some of the earlier P Bandai kits where Bandai kind of experimented with this idea were the Dwage and the Rija Z Custom. On both these kits, Bandai experimented with little ways they could add more articulation to what were otherwise pretty solid older molds. Because in most aspects, kits like the Master Grade Dom weren't really that bad. Sure, their articulation wasn't great, but when it came to their general appearance, their color separation, seam management, it was all pretty decent. So by adding just a little bit of extra articulation, they were able to revive these old molds in the literal sense of the word, not necessarily in the remake the whole mold high grade kind of sense of the word. And they were able to create these really solid new kits using old tooling. Same thing with the Master Grade Rija Z Custom. They added some thigh swivels, they improved the shoulder joints, and just like that, we had a really awesome Master Grade. And the more Bandai experiments with these kind of upgrades and sees their success, the more confident they get in them. Which brings us to today, and the high-grade revive Rick Dias. First thing right off the bat is that this is a premium Bandai model. That could upset some people, but that's not the main focus of this video. What concerns me more is whether or not the improvements being made to this kit really are enough. Because here's the thing. Old master grades have decent seam management. They've got good color separation. They're all around pretty awesome looking kits that just have some subpar articulation. Old high grades are not exactly the same story. And unfortunately, that becomes very apparent with the Rick Dias. So looking at some of the improvements you have made, you can see there are some genuine improvements made to the articulation. He now has universal thigh joints with a bit of a swinging mechanism that I've never found particularly useful myself, but I guess people like it because Bandai keeps putting it in their kits. We have a very nice double jointed elbow bend and a perfectly respectable double jointed knee. And all of this looks pretty great. But let's go back to that first picture. Here's the problem with old high grades. Not only did they have bad articulation, they also looked kind of bad too. And unfortunately, the Revive Rick Dias doesn't do a whole lot to fix that. Because even in these super nice, pretty looking official images, if you look at literally any part of this kit, you can see a big, fat seam line running right down through the middle. All the way down the shoulders, all the way down the legs. Pick a point on this kit, there's a seam line running through it. Look at the backpack right there, that's really obvious. And can these be fixed? Yes. Is it a pain in the ass to fix them? Kind of. But the reason I chose to point out the seam lines for this video is because they're the most obviously apparent in these first official images. My main point that I want to get to here is that there's more to a good kit than articulation. And while it's the first thing that people tend to jump to when they're measuring the quality of a kit, there's a whole lot more than articulation going against older high grades. With Bandai's attempted revival of this kit, they are focusing almost exclusively on articulation while kind of ignoring a lot of other major aspects of the kit that could have benefited from some reworking. And in the particular case of the Rick Dias, I don't think it was appropriate for them to rework the old mold. I think this is a kit where they really should have started from the ground and made a whole new mold, because in order to rework this kit thoroughly enough to fix the seam lines, to fix the color separation, to fix all the things that are a little bit off with this kit, to fix all the things that make it feel kind of old and clunky and dated, you would basically have to start from scratch. Now with that said, there are other older high grades that could benefit from just a little bit of extra articulation. Unfortunately, the high grade Universal Century Rick Dias is not one of those. So while I don't necessarily dislike the idea of what Bandai did with this kit at a conceptual level, I just don't think this was an appropriate kit to do it with. So that's just my thoughts on this kit. If you have a different opinion on it, if you agreed with what I said, whatever you're thinking, drop a comment down below, because this is clearly something that Bandai is doing a lot of experimentation with, and it's definitely a reoccurring thing that we're going to be seeing a lot more in the future. And before we go, just a little bit of extra bonus news. There have been also a couple of newly announced Gundam-based Tokyo exclusives, so I'm going to go over these real quick before we round up this video. So first, we have the Gundam-based limited MS General Purpose Hangar. Now, those perfect grade fanatics out there will probably recognize this almost immediately, because this is the hangar that was included with the perfect grade Gundam Zephyrantes. And basically what they've done is rebrand this as a kind of universal, all scales applicable hangar, because it was originally made for a 1/60th scale model. However, because of how interconnected and interchangeable these armature pieces are, you can also use it with smaller model kits, as you see here. Now, I'm personally not a fan of how this hangar looks. I think it looks a little too bare bones. It kind of looks like it was made out of a bunch of LEGO Technic parts, and doesn't really look like something you ever see in the actual Gundam universe. When it comes to hangar displays for my kits, I do prefer Bandai's system bases because they have a bit more of a completed look to them. And the last of the two Gundam-based exclusives is the perfect grade RX-78-2 Extra Finish version. Now, this is something that I honestly would have expected already existed, and I'm kind of surprised it doesn't, because, you know, it's an extra finish kit, it's the RX-78, it's a perfect grade. How have those three things not come together before? I don't know. Now, obviously, because this is an old kit that was never intended to be released with any kind of special finish like this, I'm sure the nubs are going to be pretty bad, unless literally the entire thing is undergated, which I doubt, but being a perfect grade, I suppose it is possible. The bigger point of interest with this kit is the fact that they're planning on releasing this anyways, even though they're already working on a 2.0 for the perfect grade RX-78. And while we haven't seen very much of the Unleashed RX-78 yet, it still seems kind of weird to release a metallic version of a 20-year-old kit instead. Waiting maybe 10 months or so for the new version to come out and making a metallic version of that makes a whole lot more sense to me. But hey, I'm not Bandai, I can't read their minds. And that is going to do it for today, guys. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to leave a like. And I do have some more new content coming down the pipeline, so if you want to stick around for some more Gundam and Gunpla content, be sure to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notifications, because that actually does help, since YouTube's kind of weird about subscriptions now. In fact, sometimes they're even weird about notifications, where you have to like click on the bell and then actually click like always show notifications, which, you know, you would think that's what it would default to, because that would, you know, actually make sense, but no, that's not how YouTube works anymore, apparently. Although you guys probably know the drill by now, basically every YouTuber ever has talked about it. So do all the usual YouTube stuff. Thanks for watching, and I will see you, hopefully very soon, next time. Take care, guys.